Legal Studies. On behalf of the Center and Terry School of Advanced Studies, I extend a warm welcome to all joining for this lecture to commemorate 70 years of Indian Constitution. We are fortunate to have with us Honorable Justice Prathibhayam Singh, Judge, High Court of Delhi, as our guest speaker. Welcome, ma'am. I now invite Dr. Vishnu Kunurayar, Head, Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies, for the introductory remarks. Dr. Vishnu.
Thank you so much, Dr. Vidhi. And thank you so much, ma'am, for coming and blessing our students. So my role is to give a brief introductory remark on today's event. So today we have Honorable Ms. Justice Prathibhayam Singh, Judge, High Court of Delhi with us. We also have Professor Manibatma Datta, the Vice Chancellor of Terry School of Advanced Studies. And we also have colleagues and students from Terry as well as from the other institutions in India. And all of us know that today we are celebrating our Constitution Day. Today, the November 26th. For some of us, especially for students with from non-law background, let me just try to explain the significance of today's event. As you all know, India's Constitution is considered to be one of the largest written document, and it lays down the political, the legal, the social, the economic, and even I would say the scientific principles of governance of our country. It bestows the people with the fundamental rights and makes it makes the citizens responsible for fundamental duties. And it is the supreme law of the land, and it is also the most critical policy document guiding the government. The Indian Constitution also demarcates the structure, the procedures, the powers, and the duties of the government. All of us also know that the Constitution was adopted on November 26th, 1949. And 2 months later, on January 26th, 1950, it became effective, and India became we are celebrating January 26th as our Republic Day. But until 2014, we used to celebrate November 26th as the Law Day. But since 2015, on the occasion of the 125th birth anniversary of Bharat Ratna Dr. Ambedkar, this day is celebrated as the Constitution Day. And as a token of respect to our great leader, Dr. Ambedkar, the father of our Indian Constitution, we are celebrating it as the Constitution Day. Now, to speak about the significance of this day, on the theme 70 years of Indian Constitution, we have Honorable Ms. Justice Prathibhayam Singh, Judge of the High Court of Delhi. And Justice Singh stood #1 in whatever she has undertaken so far. She was a first rank holder in her LLB. She did her 5-year LLB from Bangalore University, and she also represented India in Jessup Moot competition in Chicago in the United States of America. She was offered the Audace Scholarship by the Cambridge Commonwealth Trust to do an LLM degree at the University of Cambridge. And she was one of the most leading intellectual property lawyer in India, practicing in High Court of Delhi and the Supreme Court of India. And she was also a part of many high-level committees of the government of India. She has won numerous awards for her contribution. Apart from all this, from proving her strength as a student, as a lawyer, and also as a judge, she is also an academic. She has published numerous articles in the leading international and national publications. It's our privilege that ma'am has accepted our invitation, and I'm sure that all of us will be greatly benefited from her lecture on the today's theme. And thank you, everyone. And back to Dr. Vithi. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Vishnu, for setting the tone for the session today. I now request Professor Mani Padma Datta, Vice Chancellor, Terry School of Advanced Studies, to kindly deliver the welcome address. Professor Datta. Datta, sir.
Sorry. I repeat, welcome you all. Good evening, particularly our guest and today's attraction, Honorable Justice Prathibhayam Singh. Actually, I was really reading about you, and our expectations naturally really grew very much. I am a man, I am a half law man. I'm not a legal man, but anyway, I'm not an illegal entity, although. I look for, uh, because I think that Honorable Justice Pratibha Singh is also a thinker. Because thinking is get very little encouragement nowadays in India. I think that that is one challenge. It is not only case of law and judgment. In every sphere, people hate to think, and if you think, you are automatically you are a nonconformist. And if you are a nonconformist, only our justice can say whether I'm seditious or not. So this nonconformity, we know that it's a virtue, because even in Upanishad, it is said that how to serve your guru by counter questioning, prati prashnena sevaya. And in India, I think that the space for questioning is gradually shrinking. Indian constitution is one of the best, but is it one of the best in implementation? As a very layman, I put forth this question to you, ma'am, because today's newspaper I found that in the speaker's conference, there is that our president and vice president, everybody, both of them has somehow, there is a little bit of what I say, a strong critique against the judiciary, that you people are overreaching. And so that means that people are not happy with your reach. People want you under to underreach or to overreach. So I find really after 70 years, there is a lot of health, a lot of confusion created by ourselves. I'm also a student of this Indian constitution, where executive, judiciary and legislature, they are at times they are contradicting each other. And I think that's a very dangerous tendency. And at the same time, I think that I really don't know that what the role of legislature is, because American Constitution in 200 years of history has been, perhaps it has been amended only 22 times. But in our case, I really don't know. I know actually only our learned judge only might know, because I have stopped counting. So, and so these are the some of the concerns, and not only overreaching, at the same time, uh, I think the judges should be, but our last resort is the judiciary, and certainly we find some sort of judgment, some sort of things which are, I'm not really getting controversial, that all are not equal, some are more equal than others. It should not happen to judges. If I am having the misconception, please break me out. Otherwise, you people are my last hope, and all of us, the law and the legal guardians, are our last hope. And you people only can bring the erring government to task. So I think that we can have a lot of inputs from you. Personally, I will also try to benefit myself. These are my questions. Please don't take me wrong. These are my questions as a responsible citizen. So I'm confused. I hope that, like me, many of my students and colleagues might be having the same confusion. So I'm taking the risk of letting out the confusion, because at least I know, I'm quite confident that Justice Singh will not award a verdict against me. Thank you very much and welcome. And we're really grateful to have you. And at the same time, I must thank my postgraduate Center for Legal Studies. You see that they are really doing a very good job, and all their webinars are very well attended and well discussed, and they grab the best of the people from who are really the legal luminaries. Thank you very much, and again welcome you all. Thank you.
Thank you, Datta sir, for bringing on board pre-seminar queries for us. I request all the attendees to kindly keep their microphones muted during the lecture. And in case any queries, concerns, comments, questions are there, kindly post them in the chat box. It's my proud privilege now to invite Honorable Justice Prathibhayam Singh for her address. Ma'am, please.
Okay. Very good evening to all of you. Heartiest congratulations to each one of us on the Constitution Day, which is 26 November 2020. And I'm sure Professor Datta was confused about a lot of things, but I was confused when I got the invitation, because I did not know that TERI even had an advanced school of legal studies. I kept wondering, what is TERI? I know about TERI, which is the Energy Research Institute. And I kept wondering, why are they inviting me for a Constitution Day lecture? Oh, then maybe I have to speak about environment and energy. That is all. That is what I kept thinking. So then after I saw the invitation carefully, then I checked online, and then I realized that you actually have a law school for postgraduate legal studies. And I must congratulate you for this venture, because being in the legal profession, I was very surprised that I didn't know, and that you are located in Delhi itself. And so my confusion has now been erased. I just hope at the end of my lecture, Professor Datta's confusion is erased. I don't know about that. We will see at the end. Okay. So thank you, Vidhi, for inviting me today. And Professor Kunurayar, obviously you're either from Kerala or Tamil Nadu, so I hope I pronounced your name correctly. And thank you for the wonderful introduction. And Professor Datta, thank you for putting me straight in the boxer's ring, as they say, and calling me to have the fight today. But unfortunately, I have given up the day when I used to fight. The days are gone. So today I'm a judge, and I can only tell you what my thoughts are. And I hope that at the end of this, we are all a little more awakened and a little more wiser than what we started. So I would actually like to, speak for about 20-25 minutes and have an interaction maybe with your students. That's what would be nicer, because I really think one-sided monologue lecture, everybody gets bored after a point of time. So let us have a conversation at the end of it. And so I will give you my thoughts on the Constitution. And I'm not a great expert on the Constitution. As you all know, my area of practice was not, core constitutional practice. But yes, before I became a judge, I practiced for about 27 years. in various branches of law, a lot of commercial law, a lot of corporate law, intellectual property law, patent law. And of course, being a lawyer and now being a judge, we deal with the Constitution every day. And so I'll try and give you what I think are not a judge's thought, are not a lawyer's thought, but what I think is a very lay person's thought on the Constitution. So I don't want to claim to be an expert on the Constitution today. So let us see what Dr. Ambedkar said when he gave us the Constitution. That's a very important thought where we need to start with. The Dr. Ambedkar obviously gave us the Constitution. I will end with a number of thoughts which he gave. But before I begin, I want to read a quotation of our first Prime Minister, which said, "The first task of this assembly is to free India through a new constitution, to feed the starving people and to clothe the naked masses, and to give every Indian the fullest opportunity to develop himself according to his capacity." So there were, if you see, three basic needs which were the focus at that time. One is, of course, to give a new constitution. Number two would be the hope to be able to give food, clothing, and shelter to the entire Indian population. And thirdly, to allow every Indian to develop himself or herself to his capacity, his or her capacity. I think we have broadly and by way of a majority achieved a lot of the things that this intention of the first Prime Minister reflected, because I do feel though there is still poverty in our country, the poverty levels are not the same as they were in 60s and 70s. That we all can agree. And I'm sure a large number of us come from very, very humble backgrounds. And the fact that we're all here, we're all sitting wherever we are, we have developed to our capacity, we've got our education. We all, at least we're all the post-independent generation. And therefore, the fact that we have all achieved whatever we wanted to achieve without too much, financial investment, by using public institutions, by using scholarships, by excelling in what we do and acquiring these positions itself shows that India as our country has given us the opportunity to develop to our best capacities to the extent possible. I'm sure a large number of us, I'm not sure about the students who may be listening to us today, but all the people who are in the 40s and in the 50s would recognize that during our childhood, we have all stood in lines to buy kerosene, to buy sugar. We used to take our ration cards to our neighborhood stores. We used to stand in lines. We did not have continuous tap water. We did not have continuous electricity. A telephone would be one in every block or mohalla. A television was a weekly affair when we would all watch the movie on a Sunday and look forward to it. From there, today, we are watching 1600 television channels every day. We have the option. We have the option of technology. We have the option of computers. We have the option of smartphones. Wherever we are connected. Even during such a bad pandemic, we are still connected. We are still looking at each other. We are still smiling. And that itself shows that India has actually moved from where it was to what it is today. So I do agree, as Professor Datta said, that we do face a large number of challenges. I will be discussing those challenges. We cannot have an ostrich approach by hiding from those challenges. We have to name them, we have to point them, we have to face them, and we have to discuss the solutions for them. But let us not forget that today is a day when we need to also pat our own backs to see what our Constitution gave us and to be happy about our achievements and to reflect on what needs to be done. So it has to be a correct balance of both congratulatory and contemplatory. That's what I feel. So let's look at the features of our Constitution. We all know the fundamental rights, the fundamental duties, directive principles of state policy, all of that. Now, let us look at the various success stories in our Constitution. I think the first and the biggest success story, which I would think is, like the federal structure with a unitary bias. This sentence we read in 6th standard in our civics chapter, a federal structure with a unitary bias. And we are all told to write a 5-mark answer on this. So when we are children, either our parents or our teachers teach us what it means. But I really think, despite what we learn from 6th standard onwards till today, even as a judge, the beauty of this federal structure, one is able to appreciate almost on a daily basis. Almost on a daily basis. Whether it is dealing with law and order, whether it is dealing with health, whether it is dealing with international relations, whether it is dealing with security, whether it's dealing with defense, whether it's dealing with home affairs or with finance, everywhere the federal structure is working. And the biggest success stories of the federal structure, irrespective of whatever we may all think, is the imposition recently of the goods and service tax. I don't think we've seen a bigger success story of the federal structure than the imposition of the GST. What is the biggest problem in every individual's life? To give control of money to someone else, which is what our states did when they gave up their right to tax and agreed to come under the GST. The GST has had its ups and downs, but let me tell you, the way GST hopefully should be implemented and the creases are being ironed out, it is going to be a success story in our country, because the GST ensures that the businesses and individuals and professionals who perform their services and who manufacture goods, etc., are not repeatedly taxed by various authorities. So I really think that the federal structure in our country is going extremely strong. It is going to grow stronger in future. And this has been one of the success stories of our country. Let's now come to rights and duties. I really think that if there is one area where our constitution makes us proud, that is in the manner in which rights were guaranteed in the constitution and the manner in which rights have been expanded. They have been expanded, they have been made elastic, and they keep expanding with time. Could you ever believe that the right of freedom of speech and expression would also include the right to free airwaves, that is to right to broadcast? Could you believe that it may now include the right to education? It may include right to life, would include the right to privacy. Right to freedom of speech, right to access is also now being expanded and being demanded to include the right for internet. Can we ever imagine the constitution makers, they did not even know the word internet. So the right has become so elastic that the Supreme Court and the High Courts have expanded it with the growth of humankind, the growth of the social fabric, the growth of the economic, economy of the country, and the growth of technology. So these rights are not static. It's just 3 words, right to life. It includes so many things. The right to die, the right to live, the right to be having, even the kind of support we need to give for people who are brain dead. All these things have been included in right to life, including the right to sleep. It is part of the right to life. So none of us could have imagined all this. So therefore, rightly, the constitution makers called our constitution as a living organ. It is therefore an organ which is not static in time. It keeps moving. It keeps expanding. It's like a amoeba. It can be expanded in all directions. The right to carry on your profession, the right to have less interference. In fact, the right to equality, what an amazing right that is. That right has been expanded. Our country is so big-hearted that we give this right even to foreigners, to non-citizens. We give right to equality. So therefore, I think the rights guaranteed under the Constitution have been implemented in its true spirit as to what the Constitution makers wanted. It has been expanded in its true spirit. It is not static, and it has lived. The Constitution has lived up to the impression with the vision which the Constitution had of that being a living organ. Now let's come to separation of powers. This is an area which is a bit sensitive, but yes, we need to deal with it. It's like a graph. It has its crest, it has its trough. It keeps going up and down. Whenever we see the political or the governmental machinery is weak, the courts become strong. Sometimes when the government is extremely strong, it is perceived that the courts are becoming weaker. But you need to judge the judiciary not on a particular day or in a particular period. You need to judge the judiciary as a whole. As a whole, do you think the balance is being maintained? Are citizens of this country scared of coming to courts? No, they are not. It is a balance between what Professor Datta mentioned today as having an overreach by judiciary on one hand and judicial barbarism on the other hand. So the criticisms of the judiciary are by all sections of society. But the judiciary is still maintaining its balance. It is walking its tightrope and still performing its functions. Even today, let me tell you as a judge that the judiciary is the last hope of almost millions of citizens in our country, the crores of people. Even today, we do not have mayhem on the roads. We do believe in the functioning of the due process. We believe in law and order. We believe in the maintaining of the law and the respect for law. So the rule of law has not got shaken in whatsoever manner. Even today, in the most extreme situation, for example, in demonetization, everyone stood in line. Nobody created a riot. That proves that the judiciary is functioning. Because otherwise, if everybody's something like such a extreme step, even then people maintain their calm and cool, and it was allowed to go through. So what I'm saying is the rule of law, law and order, everything being what it is today, I think the judiciary is creating that very fine balance between overreach on one hand and non-interference on the other hand. So these two criticisms will continue to come against the judiciary. However, we should not make stray incidents as the example. We should always look at not specific cases, but cases as a whole to judge the judicial system. And I can tell you in my experience, ultimately, the judicial system has, according to me, there is a divine or a spiritual reason behind why the judicial system continues to function. And the reason why we always have this slogan, Satyameva Jayate, it is still working even today. And therefore, I don't think that we all need to feel any, unhappiness or disturbance within our own minds. Yes, on a given day, you may wake up reading the newspaper thinking, oh my God, this may be a wrong judgment, or this is going wrong. Yes, but then in the overall scheme of things, you will realize that at the end of the day, courts are functioning and they remain the safeguarders or the guardians of the rule of law. Let's now come to 4 of the most important success stories in our country. One is the multi-party system and the parliamentary democracy. This, according to me, has proved to be one of the biggest success stories in India, because this not only, unlike the several other countries of the world, multi-party system has been able to reflect the regional aspirations of our people, the linguistic aspirations, the religious aspirations of our people. So it is possible to have religion-based parties. It is possible to have language-based parties. It is possible to have region-based parties. Even today, the multi-party system is completely thriving in our country. Though there are dominance by 1 or 2 or 3 main national parties, you will see that overall in the country, the regional parties have a very, very important role to play. And the regional parties not just play a role in their own states, but also in the center whenever there are coalition governments which have come up in the center. So this emergence of the multi-party system is one of the biggest success stories in our country. And I do believe that this multi-party system, the way it should become more and more robust, it should become more and more active, and it should continue to be encouraged, because this creates the fine balance within our polity, and we do not become dominated by a 2 or 3 party system in our country. The second and the most important other success story I would like to mention is the manner in which our government is structured. We have the Westminster model of democracy, which is headed by the Prime Minister, the Council of Ministers, and they have a collective responsibility. We did not opt for a presidential form of government. And this, as per the constitution makers, was because one of the drafting committee members said that this is because in England, for example, which was the initiator of the Westminster model, the executive power vests in the cabinet, but the assessment of the responsibility of the government is not only in the elections. It is periodic. It takes place in Parliament every day, whenever Parliament assembles, through questions, through resolutions, through no confidence motions, adjournment motions, debates on addresses. Periodic assessment is done by the electorate at various stages: state elections, central elections, council elections, municipality elections, etc., etc. So therefore, this Westminster model of democracy and the manner in which we choose each of the members of Parliament, who then constitute the majority, instead of the indirect method of electoral college, I think is one of the most efficient forms of governance. Though of course nobody is saying that the electoral college is not an efficient form, but I'm just saying that insofar as India is concerned, for Indian population, this has turned out to be a success story. In fact, there was a different model which was contemplated at the time the constitution was being drafted, that the Prime Minister should be elected by like a single transferable vote. Ministers should be elected by a single non-transferable vote. But these proposals were not accepted. And today, in effect, almost the Prime Minister is the head of the largest party with the largest number of MPs. And that is therefore the model which we have chosen, which seems to be working quite well for our country. The third biggest success story, according to me, is the Election Commission of India. And I think the Election Commission of India as a federal institution requires a huge pat in the back for the manner in which they conduct our elections across the country. Even the recent elections in Bihar or in UP or in any other state, you would see that at the end of it, you will hear some murmurs here and there, but the Election Commission of India has really become a very, very positive, vibrant organization, which is fulfilling its responsibility, carrying out its duties in coordination with, the entire structure of, for example, the army, the paramilitary forces, the teachers, educational institutions, bureaucrats, etc., who help them. But it is such a beautiful and a well-oiled machinery that free and fair elections, which was not to be taken for granted at least 3 or 4 decades ago, today I think we can take it for granted that most of our elections are completely free and fair, and the people who get elected are coming through free and fair processes. Now let's look at the last and the most important subject which I wanted to touch, that is appointment of judges. Now in this, there is a debate which always takes place as to whether the government should appoint or the court should appoint judges. According to me, the system, this particular debate should continue. The debate will continue. However, the collegium system, by majority of judges in the High Court deciding as to who should be High Court judges, recommending the same to the Supreme Court, and the Supreme Court then recommending the same to the government, is a system which may have some exceptions, but by and large, the collegium system has functioned well. The NJAC was struck down by the Supreme Court. However, this NJAC will continue to be an experiment which will keep evolving. And according to me, the judgment of the Supreme Court in the judge's case is something which has worked for India, and until now has produced eminent and very good judges who are manning our judiciary. So I would like to only end by saying that Dr. Ambedkar said, however good a constitution may be, if those who are implementing it are not good, it will prove to be bad. However bad a constitution may be, if those implementing it are good, it will prove to be good. And I must say, there are challenges that we face today. For example, the decentralization attempts in the early 90s with the creation of panchayats, municipalities, etc. I think they have only been a partial success story. If they had been a complete success story, we may have actually eliminated poverty in our country. So maybe we need to look at these models and bring in much more, better governance in these institutions. The second thing that is bothering, which I think is a big challenge, is an article which came in the newspaper today that, insofar as services in India are concerned for the common man, people have to pay bribes, or people feel that unless until they have some influence, they're not able to get things done. This is something we need to get over. We need to try and implement as much as possible. Look at smaller countries in the world, whether it is, a small country like Japan, which is an economic superpower, or even Vietnam, which may not be such an economic superpower, but is doing so much better than us in these areas. We need to look at these countries and see what we can do. According to me, there are two solutions that I think would help. One is an honesty of purpose. We need to inculcate the honesty of purpose in our young children, in our young students. So I don't know if the national education policy which has been introduced will do that. It's only time which will tell us. However, one sure shot solution which I feel is technology. The National Judicial Data Grid has now made almost the entire data of the entire judiciary of the country available on the click of a mouse. I don't know how many are aware of this. I think you should make this as part of your curriculum for your postgraduate students. The National Judicial Data Grid is a huge success story. Right from the subordinate judge till the Supreme Court, you can actually go on the grid and get the daily orders from the grid. You can get a large amount of data from the grid. Please go there and you will realize that your eyes will be opened on that. Secondly, there are various states which have adopted technology for, land records, mutations, sale, purchases of land, and, properties. Technology will help even there. We need to eliminate human interface as much as possible, whether it's a water connection, electricity connection, birth death certificates, licenses, phone connections, passports. The more we eliminate human interface, the more we will be able to implement technology which will remove the corruption and bribery, for which India is not being rated very well. I think recent steps such as taxation becoming faceless is another step in this. We need to see how that will work out. So I really think that technology is quite an important answer to remove all these hiccups that we are facing in our constitutional democracy. I would like to end by thanking you all for inviting me today.
Thank you, ma'am. There are a couple of queries in the chat box. May I invite them, my students, one by one, to pose those queries themselves. Abhishek Majumdar. Abhishek?
Good evening, ma'am.
Good evening.
So, ma'am, my question is that when it comes to the rights of the under trials, it has been often observed that they do not get adequate representations and they end up sometimes being incarcerated behind the bars, even beyond the time which is sanctioned by the statute itself as a tenure of imprisonment. So, ma'am, do you think that the rule of law somehow fails when it comes to such people and their rights? Or is the judiciary, the lower judiciary especially, has become complacent somewhere. I would love to hear your opinion, ma'am.
Thank you, Abhishek.
Thank you.
I must say that the our non-representation for under trials is one area where the Supreme Court has really focused in the last 10 to 15 years. The National Legal Services Authority has been set up because of this. And I must tell you, during this entire lockdown situation, I have had the personal experience of dealing with a large number of bail and criminal matters. And almost no one goes without having representation. There are proper systems which are put in place in jail under the superintendents. Whoever wants representation is given. And I can tell you another thing, my experience of legal aid lawyers has been excellent. In fact, they are sometimes even better than the private lawyers which the under trials engage. The manner in which youngsters, even from national law schools, from very well-known law schools, are becoming legal aid lawyers, and they're even being paid their honorarium. It is legal aid is one of the biggest success stories in our country. So I do agree that there may be certain exceptions and certain aberrations in this, but legal aid is an amazing success story. The legal aid clinics exist at the district level, at the high court level, and at the national level. So I don't think there is anything to worry about. They are manned by district judges who are extremely talented. High courts are very particular about the people who take care of the legal aid projects. So this is a very vibrant and a very robust legal aid system that we have. I don't think there's anything to worry at all. If there is any stray case where there's a problem, please bring it to the notice of the Secretary Legal Service Authorities, and that will be taken care of immediately.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we have Vedic. Vedic?
Yes, ma'am.
Yes, please.
Good evening, ma'am. As you talked of the separation of powers between organs, it also exists with the complementary principle of checks and balances between all the organs of our country. So, over the years, it has been noted and also criticized how judiciary has almost nullified all the checks which were there in the constitution, which were placed on judiciary. So, specifically, my question after the NJAC case: what are some practical checks on the Indian judiciary, which according to you, and also what do you think are some checks which are required as well? So if you can shed some light on that.
See, the question of separation of powers, Vedic, is nothing. It is always an evolving system. Whenever the Supreme Court or the High Courts feel that the executive is not functioning in the correct way, there has to be what is called an overactive activist judiciary. For example, in the area of environment, in the area of providing of essential services, maybe the judiciary has stepped on to the executive's role. But the point is, whenever a citizen comes to the court due to inaction or the passive nature of the executive, then the court cannot be a blind, cannot turn a blind eye to that. So that is the reason why the judiciary would be stepping in. But I must say, as judges, we are conscious. It always keeps going up and down, as I keep saying. It's like a crest and a trough, and it is never static. Whenever there's a need, we do go in an activist manner, but then we step backwards as well. There are enough checks and balances within the system. If a single judge goes too far, the division bench takes care of it, or the Supreme Court takes care of it. So there is, for example, the views of Professor Datta today. There are people in our country who are so free to express themselves. Whenever even the Supreme Court goes wrong, the Supreme Court is also cautioned by the free press. And as they say, the fourth pillar of our constitution always takes care of any overactivism or overzealousness that courts have.
Thank you, ma'am.
Next, we have Rishabh. Rishabh, please go ahead.
Good evening, ma'am. Am I audible? Yeah. Okay. Ma'am, my question is that very recently we are seeing a spark of debate in an editorial section where Prathibhayam Mehta has used the word judicial barbarism. Now, injecting such a word in our language or maybe in our dictionary. And furthermore, Navroj Sarvai in his article "Giving Up the Good Fight," the way he has actually applauded Mr. Mehta. And then there comes other polarized opinion from Gaurav Bhatia and one another advocate from Bombay High Court. My question is, what is your analysis and what actually deems fit to such a debate, to such an ongoing debate at this point of time? Is what views shall we buy at this point of time?
Rishabh, the whole point of the fact that they are all expressing themselves means that they're all free and they're expressing themselves. And the articles which are being specifically referred to, I would not like to comment on them. But yes, as Professor Datta said, I did mention in my speech, on the one hand, there is an allegation that there is an overreach by the judiciary. On the other hand, there's a view that there is judicial barbarism. Both views will coexist, but the courts will perform their functions as per the constitution. So I would not want to comment on the specific articles written by anyone.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Do we have any more? These were the questions which were posted in the chat box. If there are more questions, anyone else, please. Aryaditya, please go ahead.
A very good evening, ma'am. My question is not exactly a question. I would like to know your experience of e-filing and e-hearing that you had in recent months, and your perspective and your future, what you see, how this e-hearing and e-filing system would work for our country.
Okay. Thank you, Aryaditya. This is the first time I've seen a name called Aryaditya. Very nice. So my own experience is like you're actually speaking to the wrong person. I am a part of the IT committee and I run an e-court even in non-COVID times. So I am part of the community of the Delhi High Court, where we have at least 20 judges who all run electronic courts. We are very comfortable, and Delhi High Court is a pioneer court in implementing e-filing. We have a very strong IT committee which monitors e-filing very robustly, and we have an IT department which takes care of it. So on a daily basis, I only use electronic records. I do not have any paper files which come to me in bags. When we are doing even 40-50 matters, all I get is a hard drive in the night. So I just read my files on the hard drive. When I'm hearing the matter in court, I only use a monitor. I use a digital pen. That's like the normal court before lockdown. And after lockdown, yes, the way I'm speaking to you, I'm holding court in the same way. So it is very efficient. We haven't had any problems. We are able to dispose of matters after hearing everybody. And my own experiences during lockdown, I think junior lawyers are getting a better chance, because in the physical court, the seniors tend to kind of be a little aggressive and junior lawyers get a little intimidated. But in video conference, everyone gets an equal voice. And I think sometimes the junior lawyers are very happy to argue in video conferencing. And my own experience in the Delhi High Court is that all the judges of Delhi High Court are using video conferencing now. All of us are using electronic records, and we are not facing any problems. We are able to run through the list morning to evening, pass our orders. Our staff in the High Court has completely got acclimatized to this. So in Delhi High Court, it's a complete success story. I would give, if I had to give marks, I would give 98 on 100 to Delhi High Court.
Thank you, ma'am. It's good to hear. Thank you.
Any more questions? Any more questions? Okay, if there are no more questions, on behalf of Center for Postgraduate Legal Studies, Terry School of Advanced Studies, I would like to thank and express sincere gratitude towards Ma'am Honorable Justice Prathibhayam Singh for sparing her invaluable time and being with us on a working day. Thank you so much, ma'am. Ma'am has eloquently traced the journey of this vibrant document called the Constitution of India. She's demonstrated through various illustrations how the Constitution is a living document and how the ideals enshrined in the Constitution by its makers have evolved and stood the test of time. It is, I was listening to one of your speeches given early this year, ma'am, which began. I could just hear half of it, and it began with that. We have stopped talking about the positive things, and the lecture now felt like a continuation of where I left the speech in the morning. And it has always been a treat to hear you, ma'am, and today happens to be no exception. It is indeed our pleasure to have you today on this Constitution Day celebration at Terry School. We look forward to many more of such engagements and host you at our campus, which is situated in Vasant Kunj in Delhi. And I also wish to thank my Vice Chancellor, Professor Datta, and my HOD, Dr. Vishnu, for their incessant support and guidance. My sincere thanks to the coordination team at MAM's office and the IT and admin team at my university for seamless coordination of this event. A big thank you to my students and other participants for patient listening, for their incisive queries and encouraging presence. Thank you. Thank you all.
Thank you. I enjoyed myself. Namaste. Good evening.
Thank you so much, ma'am. Thank you.
Ma'am, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you, ma'am.